Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 5 of The Fall of the House of X, written by Jerry Duggan. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Now this issue opens with the narrator saying this war began like most all other wars do, and that is with the perversion of the truth. Because the Orchis protocols were enacted when Krakoa was announced to the world. Now according to the founders of Orchis, they were meant to combat mutant supremacy. Now this objective made the human component too short-sighted, because Nimrod and the rest of the artificial intelligence wanted everybody dead. So with that explained, we fast-forwarded to Nimrod punching the heck out of Wolverine, because up to this point, the X-Men managed to destroy the Sentinel City's solar array. Now by doing this, according to Nimrod, all they managed to do is make the dark times on Earth more bloody and prolonged. So with Wolverine being sent flying, we also see Nimrod all over the world, fighting Emma in New York and Polaris in Washington, D.C. So speaking of Polaris, on the next page we see Magneto arriving on the scene to aid his daughter. Because one thing people have to understand about the Krakoan era of comics is that mutants will always have each other's back. Because we also see Sync, Manifold, and even Magic coming to Emma's defense. So as the battle continues to wage on, we jump over to Kurt helping Cyclops, and while he was doing that, he was also filling him in on his mission to sabotage the thrusters that are used to move the city. Now with that part of the mission a success, the two heroes try to compile a plan to fight the AI, but while they was doing that, Psylocke interrupts them and informs them that Colossus was just punched into space and is almost out of sight. So with time ticking, Kurt immediately requests Psylocke to share her sight with him as he bamf after his friend. So with Kurt on a mission, Scott Summers called out to Nimrod in order to fight, because if Nimrod wants to end it all, then Cyclops suggests that he starts with him. So with Nimrod's attention piqued, we jumped above the docking bay, as Omega Sentinel tried to regain control of the station's thrusters that Nightcrawler heavily damaged. So as Omega Sentinel typed away, Rogue came crashing out the ground, and knocked her clean off her feet. So with the Sentinel down, Omega states that Charles made a deal that would have allowed the mutant people, which includes the X-Men, to live longer. But now, all deals are off the table, and Omega was about to shoot away, until Psylocke appeared behind her and delivered a psychic blade into her head. So after all that energy coursed through her, the once feared Omega Sentinel collapsed on the ground in a vegetative state. So with Omega defeated, Rogue was inches away from sealing the deal when Psylocke stopped her. Because Psylocke prefers to see her in a mental prison instead. So as Omega drowned in regret and pain, Rogue and Psylocke made their way to the window and jumped out. And for a moment, it seemed like the tides of the battle had turned, but Nimrod was still one step ahead of them. Because in a giant blast, the two women were sent flying. So with that turn of events playing out, Kurt arrived back with Colossus. Now as the battle continues, we find out that the machine ejected Colossus into space for the express purpose of drawing Nightcrawler away from sabotaging the station. Now this is crazy because the artificial intelligence had planned this thing out to the very last detail, because they fought and won this war billions of times in war games that only existed in ones and zeros. So right before Nimrod was about to crush Kurt, we learned that not only Nimrod never stopped playing war games, but he killed billions of souls in his minds, and in that time, there was always one X-Man left standing after the others fell. And in those endless simulations, Cyclops was the Omega mutant that always stood in his way. Cyclops was always the last one standing. So with that said, we find out that Cyclops' gift was one of the only attacks that could crack Nimrod's armor. Now following that attack, Nimrod managed to close the gap between them and took hold of Scott's neck and informed him that he is indeed the toughest among them. And at that moment, we also get a chance to see the battles against Nimrod around the world starting to sour as he asks all his soon-to-be victims if they have any last words. Cyclops interrupted him and stated that she wouldn't let him kill him. Now Nimrod thought he was talking about Jean, but he was dead wrong. Because the person in question was none other than the Goddess Storm. And in a hellstorm of electricity, the mechanical menace was sent to the ground. Now on the corner of the page, the narrator stated out of Nimrod's billion calculations he ended up being wrong about the last X-Men standing. In fact, he also goes on to say this mistake is the most humanity that Nimrod would ever achieve. So with that done, Nimrod's duplicates created a flaw that he could not perceive. Because in order for Nimrod to exist and think across vast distances, it required a lot of data and power. Now this was something Storm's gifts were able to exploit. So with all Nimrods going offline, Magneto and Polaris took the opportunity to strike their robotic enemy. So while that was going on, Storm then told Nimrod if he was ever destined to be more than what he was programmed to be, then he would flee from the X-Men. In fact, she even goes as far as to offer the AI a choice to stay and die or run and live. But in Nimrod's arrogance, he chose to fight. So as the beam was sent flying from his chest, Cyclops' optic blast was able to run interference. So with that going down, on the next panel, Omega cried out for Nimrod saying, he doesn't have to do this. So as Nimrod battles back, Storm reminds herself and Nimrod, if they stop fighting then the war will end, but if she stops, then they will die. So with yet another crack in his armor, Storm seized the moment and unloaded her assault. Now with yet another burst of energy echoing through the duplicates, Sync was able to catch on to what was going down, and channeled Storm's ability and manifested yet another burst of lightning and sent it crashing down. So with that playing out, we see even Polaris harassing a positive charge while Magneto pulled on the negative, and with their combined effort, yet more energy was thrown into the mix for good measure. And as a side effect, even Nimrod's duplicates that hid from combat were wiped out. And in an epic display of power, Nimrod was no more. Now with Storm standing victorious, Omega Sentinel was reborn as her human self by the name Karima. So following that we see the remaining mutants, following the battle, regroup around Manifold. And just like before, he asks the universe for yet another favor. And just like that, they were gone right before the city exploded. Now following the death of Nimrod, the Stark Sentinels were swiftly deactivated, for Nimrod had himself connected to everything within the organization. And as for Charles, he sat proud of his students' achievements despite his current situation. Because moments later, Kate and Miss Marvel bashed their way into his cell, only to be met by what they believed was no one. Because Charles has a history of making people see what he wants them to see. Because up to this point, Charles is hunted for his part in the destruction of the human frigate. But regardless of his reasoning behind doing it, nobody knew the truth behind it yet. So because of that, Charles was not yet ready for his game to be over yet, for there was still work he needed to do. So following that, we jump over to Manifold and the rest of the mutants showing up somewhere unexpected, somewhere surprising. For the team appeared in the hands of Lactuca. Now Lactuca tells them that it was hoping to obfuscate them from the threat that remains, referring to the Dominion. Because if Enigma looks their way, then all he will see is a void in the cosmos. So with its actions made clear, Manifold goes on to thank it for its assistance and assure the rest of his team that they are okay. Now as that is going down, Lactuca tells Scott that the universe is on the precipice, and his heart could tip the scales away from death and towards life. So with that bit of wisdom delivered, the mutants appear back on Krakoa, and one of the first things they see is Apocalypse exiting the woods. And he quickly informed them that Krakoa is still alive and will need their help and energies to help nourish it. So with everything going well for our team, Cyclops takes a step away from everyone to send a private message to Jean. He tells her that they were able to smash Orchis and destroy everything ranging from big to small. So once again, after everything they've been through, the lives and the deaths, they need to rise again, because Nathaniel Essex is still out there, and still threatening to end them all. And as for Lactuca, she told him that his heart will save them all. But he gave her his heart, and he knows she can't reply, but he believes she can hear him. So he asked her to come back and bring the fire with her. So with that said, the final issue of The Fall of the House of X comes to an end, and the story will resume in The Rise of the Powers of X issue number 5 and Uncanny X-Men issue number 700. But anyway, down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.